I think I'm going to be repeating myself a lot of times this weekend. Everyone keeps asking me, what is it and how does it work? So most of you, I know you through the ice rink, you know what this is. It's an Olympia 2000 model. It was the 4th machine that we had at the arena. We started off with a tractor, a Ford tractor, with like a conditioner on the back. And you ended up, there was not enough weight on the front to steer, so people used to put stewards on the front to hold the weight down on the front wheels so you can actually turn around the corners. We had that for a while. Then there was like an arena equip thing that wasn't there that long. Then we had the previous one to this, which we called Daisy, because it made a noise like that when it reversed, went moo. And the Daisy was a bit better because it had a wash tank. This doesn't have a wash tank. I'll explain that in a minute. But it's basically built in Canada. It's a Zamboni. It's not a Zamboni. It's an Olympia. It says on the side there. So it's like Nike and Adidas. They both do exactly the same thing, but they're just different makes. Okay. So you have a Zamboni and Olympia. There are other makes as well, and a few more coming on the market. This one runs on propane. That in there, under there, is it's actually a Chevy engine. It's a 5 litre V8 Chevy engine, and I've had to change the exhaust on this once before. And I really didn't want to put the muffler on because it sounds awesome when there's no muffler on there. It's brilliant. So yeah, V8 Chevy, but it runs on LPG, propane, gas, 2 bottles, and you can switch the bottles. I'll show you. 2 gas bottles there. Selector valve here, so if one runs out, you can switch it over. It's all hydraulic. Steering's hydraulic, 4-wheel drive, studs in the tyres, and it's basically a seat and a steering wheel. You sit on this side and you look out down the side at the ice you're doing. You can do so many different patterns and so many different cuts. Used to teach the basic cuts really, but there are loads of other cuts that you can do. And you have a snow dump, which is a big bin which collects all the snow. So the way it collects the snow is you lower this bit of kit onto the floor. Now that at the back, that is what does all the work, called the conditioner. That does all the work. That just pulls it along, but that does all the work. So underneath here, I will show you. Underneath here, normally I've taken it off for safety reasons. There's a big blade that runs the length under here, razor sharp. We used to get them sharpened over the water, Giddings, RF Giddings, they used to do them for us. Razor sharp blade, tapered on the last 6 inches on each edge, well the holder is, not the blade. 84-inch blade, and with the handle that you see people frantically spin there, you decide the pitch of the blade. The blade's got 2 holes in it, and however much once you've worn it down so far, you bring it forward and you can use a bit more of the blade. Once it gets too shallow, you get rubbish ice, and you just cut them up and you turn them into chippers. So that is what basically cuts it. So you find the level underneath here, underneath the runners. You find the level, check the blade's flat before you go on the ice, and then you ease it in. A nice fresh blade will cut. It'll cut chips. It'll be really razor sharp, but you have to bed them in a little bit. You need to do a couple of cuts before you can actually use it properly. Sometimes it snags. So you've got to be on top of it. You don't want to get stuck on the ice, because in that part there are 2 tanks, stainless steel tanks, not the originals because they corroded out, but 2 stainless steel tanks, and we fill up with hot water through that tube there. Hot water, fill it up. The stewards normally forget and leave it overflowing for ages, but anyway, hot water, hot as you can get it really, because hot water's got less oxygen in, or less air, and it makes a much better bond with the ice, much better bond with the ice. So you cut, and as you cut, you have this auger. Obviously it spins, but it's the augers are placed one way and the other way, and they drag the snow into the middle. So you have a horizontal auger, and then it throws it into a vertical auger that goes up there. That tube is there, and then it throws it into the bin, throws all the snow into the bin, and you get a nice pop when you're cutting really well. What you mustn't do is, with a new blade at the beginning of a hockey game, it can jam up in here, so you've got to keep that going, which is your snow breaker. Bang bang bang, and all it does is it just cuts the snow to break it up, because it builds up down the bottom. So you have to make sure that that doesn't jam up. If it does jam up, you've got to get off the ice, and that will stop spinning, and it will jam up, and your ice will go everywhere, and it will ruin your ice, make a mess. What you don't want to do is, just as it starts to move, is put your foot in it. The only time I've ever had stitches was because that plate was taken off to hose that off, and Muggins put his foot in there. I blame Rowan, but it technically wasn't his fault. It was my fault for being a dumbass. So yeah, my foot went in there, and it's pretty powerful, that thing, and it dragged it along and almost got the Achilles. So don't be dumb. You also have on the back a cloth here, manky cloth. They're really expensive, so we used to make, like this one here, I used to make them just out of towels, because they get, when they're wet all the time, they get slimy, and you get you get rubbish ice. So you need to keep your towels nice and clean, and obviously that will stick on the ice as well. So if you stop, that will freeze, the water will freeze and stick the towel, and you drag and rip the towel apart. So it's another thing that people overlook, things like that, towels. The other thing they overlook is the squeegee. There's a squeegee under here, and that stops any of the ice coming out from the conditioner. That's what keeps it in there. So if you've got a split on the squeegee, it can chuck some ice out as well. The water comes out using a tap up here, and you decide the flow of how fast the water comes out, of the hot water that is, and it comes out of a pipe here. The other one rusted out. I made this one out of plastic. There's a pipe run there, it's got little holes in, and they just do jets of water onto the towel, onto the ice, hot water, lovely. So you cut it, and you're laying a nice fresh surface over the top. The other machine had here another tap, same as that one, but here, and then in that gap there'd be a thing called a wash tank, and that is has a little pump in there, a little impeller, and you can use it to use the snow that you've built up in the conditioner, under the conditioner, to make a slush. And as you drive over, it will push the slush into the grooves, and then you lay the hot water behind and smooth it off, and it makes it all lovely and neat. And it's just a nice feature to have. And you can use it in reverse. So if you're putting water down and there's too much going down, you can turn the pump on, and it will siphon it back up. It'll come back up. So that's a good bit of kit. This one doesn't have it, but it does have. But you can have optional extras on these, like tyre wash, because some machines you have to drive out into car parks and things, and dump the snow. So you want a bit of tyre wash. You don't want to put rubbish on the ice. The ice is supposed to be clean as a whistle. Also, because we always go clockwise around the arena, you have a board brush. Self-explanatory really. Drops, goes out, and brushes the sides. The machine, because it can't actually cut fully into the sides, there's going to be yay that much that's not going to get to the boards. Even if you're tucked up against the boards, the blade's still not going to touch, and where everyone stops and the water runs down the boards, you get a build-up of ice. So you need to get rid of that, otherwise you're not going to have flat ice. Your ice is going to be all pissed all over the place. So you have to edge with this, looking a bit sorry for itself now. Edger, it's basically a lawnmower, metal blades right on the edge, and you can go around the edge. And the corners, especially at Ride, were really tight. Bigger arenas, they can sweep round, and you can do the corners nicely. But the one in Ride was so tight, so you have to edge, and you bring the edger out, and you cut and you cut and you cut and you cut. Loads of work, loads of late nights. I don't know how many late nights I've had, but while everyone was out, when all the hockey players were asleep, and the figure skaters and the session skaters and everyone else was asleep, working on the ice at night, I didn't mind it actually. And the other thing you've got to do as well is plan it and flood. So you've got to plan the week. If you know you've got a heavy hockey weekend and things like that, the ice is going to be hard. You need the ice hard. You need to turn the chillers down to make the ice harder, and you need to plan that. It takes time to do that. You're pulling heat out. That's what you're doing. So you've got to be well aware of your chillers, well aware of the temperature outside, well aware of the humidity as well, condition of the blade, edging, floods. You got to do depth reads in the pad as well. Literally, you drill down. The one at Ride, you get sand or concrete base pads. Ride was good. It was a concrete pad, so you just drill down, boom, till it touches the floor. Pull the drill bit out and measure the depth. So you've got an idea of how thick and thin it is all over the place. Higher is the corners, because people go really slow in the machine around the corners. and people don't, you know, edging and things doesn't happen as often as it should have done. So there's that. And you've also got the low ports, which is normally the gold creases. So the gold creases normally end up really, really low, because people go up, they do a certain pattern, they go up, over the gold crease, down, up, over the gold crease, down, over the gold crease, over the gold crease, over. They go over the gold crease every time you do a cut, you do a line. So you've got to wind up the blade, but some people, no matter how many times you tell them, they don't understand it. So you've got to wind the blade up when you go over the goal, and then ease it back down, feather it in, feather it up, feather it in. And like I say, there's loads of different cuts you can do, figure of eights if you want to try and get it down. You can cross cut, you can go the other, there's so many you can do. But for the basics, for a ride, that's what I used to tell them what to do. Just do a basic cut and go home. Flooding as well, obviously flooding at night, you got to get the hose out. Cold water, and the idea is it's supposed to be pebble dashed on, really, but sometimes you have to do a heavy flood. Again, you need to know timings, because it takes lots of time to pull all that air and heat out of the pad. It takes ages, so you've got to be well aware that if you flood past a certain time, you know, 1 AM, you don't want to be flooding after that, because it's not going to be dry by the morning and things like that, and you can still be wet in places, especially the time of year and things like that. So yeah, you need to know. There's a lot of science involved in it as well, but it's a great bit of kit, that machine. It's a good, she is a good one. There's a couple of issues with it, which I know about, but she is tired. But it's a good. It was a good machine. Originally from Coventry, this one. They used it at Coventry, and then they brought it down to the island after it had done one pad, I think. And because the Isle of Wight was supposed to be Planet Ice's showcase arena that they were going to show off to all the other people, and it was going to be, look at this, look at where we are. Oh, it's amazing. Have all the best stuff. We got a nice machine out of it, but yeah. The chillers, no, the original chillers in there were much better, and the system was much better, but that'll bore you even more than this video will. But yeah, she's a good machine. Propane gas, as I've said, and yeah, it's pretty good. And if you want to come down and see it, it's at Sandown Airfield today for a car show, and I bought that bus. So yeah. It's a good bit of kit. Any questions? I'm going to be saying this all afternoon. They're going to ask me exactly the same thing, but I thought I'd do a video. There you go, it's done.